Isaac Newton has a wonderful quote. He says, "In the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone would show me the existence of God." And yeah, I just briefly from a palmist perspective, when you talked about loops and whirls, right? In fact, you didn't say, you said curves and whirls, but loops and whirls. Loops and whirls you see in handwriting and you see in palmistry. And traditionally, Indian palmists would have read both because the hand shows what you are, and then the writing shows how you bring what you are out into the world. So when you're looking at a hand, you're looking at various different elements. And one thing that I find particularly fascinating about palmistry is that you've got different types of fingerprints, and one is called the whirl, and it's like a series of concentric circles. It looks like a dartboard on your prints, and one is called a loop. It's a wave like this. And what that tells a palmist is how the fingers were pushing against the first environment which they encountered, which is the amniotic fluid of their mother. Because in the first trimester, you're producing the whole body, you produce these balloons on the end of the fingers, they're called volar pads. In the second trimester, those things are shrinking. And just the same way that a balloon leaves wrinkles when it shrinks, your fingerprints are the record of the shrinking volar pad as you're developing in the second trimester. So when you have the concentric circles, it means that your hormones and your growth factors and your life energy is pushing out in all directions, and then the amniotic fluid is pushing in all directions, so it kind of closes up like this. And that tells a palmist that in that particular domain of the finger, which I'll tell you about in a second, there's already force there at the beginning, before you're even born. Whereas the most common print is the loop or a wave, and it looks like this, and that means the volar pad's been pushed out and it's been squished to one side, and then the wrinkles do a shape like this. And that print is what you see in monkeys. It's what you see in all the lower apes. They only have those loop prints. And as you go through the apes, as you get towards humans, chimpanzees have got about 30% or 70% of those prints and 30% the other. Humans have got about 60% of the loops. And we start developing these whirls as we're kind of pushing against the environment. And it's interesting as well that the thumb, which governs the will, you see it coming round against into opposition with the rest of the fingers, right? And we're the only creatures where our will can go against the rest of the organism, and we can, for example, go on hunger strike for some particular cause. You don't get other creatures doing that. You don't really get them committing suicide, but our will can go against the rest of the organism, and our fingers can go against the thumb. And there we have, which I think is basically Lucifer as well, the the part of us which is pushing against the other ones. And also, therefore, being able to manipulate the environment because you can go around in all directions. There's another thing that you're looking for, which is the length of the fingers, because each different finger is governed by a different set of hormones that are present in the mother's womb as well. So if you have a high level of testosterone, then the third finger gets longer. And if you have a high level of estrogen, the first finger gets longer. And pituitary hormones are on the middle finger, right? So you can then map those different fingerprint types onto those different fingers. So, for example, people with a long third finger, I mean, according to the science, they're more likely to start their own businesses. Third finger is about grows under the influence of testosterone. It's about your drive. In palmistry, it's Apollo. And the third finger is very interesting. All the monkeys, all the apes, all the gorillas, all of them, they have a longer third finger. But the first finger is getting longer and longer as you get towards humans. And 90% of humans, like me, have a longer third finger, but 10% have a longer first finger. And that's the finger of Jupiter. And that's the finger of personality, individuality, consciousness, right? Those people are bossy. You can tell the easiest thing in palmistry is if you look around the table, you find the person who's got the longest first finger, they're going to be the bossy one, and they're going to be wagging that finger. And I know, and you do what I say. The thumb is about the will. Yes, no. Under someone's thumb. You see it in our language as well. And we're noticing all these things, even if we're not conscious of it, though palmists, of course, are conscious of it. That finger is traditionally, long first finger is traditionally found in priests, for example. Yeah. It's also overrepresented in schizophrenic wards, the long first finger, because those are the people who are concerned with consciousness. Where's my place in this thing? You know, high levels of estrogen will make you much more concerned about your environment, much more concerned about nurturing and everyone being in harmony and those kind of things. Yeah, so I would just encourage you all to study hands and study just get into palmistry. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm actually going to stick my own website in the chat so you can have a look. There's a whole bunch of talks on it, but I'm not here to plug myself. The last Actually, I just wanted to respond to two more things, right? The thing about eyes fixation. That was a guy called James Braid, who's the man who invented the term hypnosis. So before then it was called mesmerism, it was called a bunch of other stuff. So I'm responding to Lee here. He's also the guy. He was a doctor. He had a patient came to his house and he was treating another patient. So he said, "Can you stay in this other room?" And when he went, he left him there for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour. And when he went there, he found that the guy was fixated on his lamp. And this is the guy who noticed that it's the eye fixation, which is an entry into trance. We're normally flicking around with our eyes all over the place. You know, it's tiring for the eyes to fixate, and it's unnatural, but it is a kind of tunnel vision into our trances. Um, Last thing I want to say is basically for us to have heart, actually, because I think, we're seeing this terror of the machines. And we've seen tech come in before, and it changes us, but it doesn't necessarily diminish us. Um, Saint Augustus, in his Confessions, written after he'd lived through all kinds of terrible religious riots and all kinds of things that guy lived through. One of the things that really stuck in his head was seeing Bishop Ambrose, in his room reading a book without pronouncing the words, because that was completely unthinkable at the time. When you read, you spoke the words out loud. And now, unless you're basically, if you can read, you can read with your mouth closed. And so I think that we do find ways to integrate technologies the same way we integrated the printing press. Um, but the 150 years after the printing press were some of the most violent, well, probably the most violent that Europe has ever seen. We had the 80 Years' War and 30 Years' War, all kinds of massacres. Of course, there was gunpowder coming in, there was a whole load of other things. But we managed to integrate that. And my feeling is that we do manage to integrate tech with our bodies, but it might be on the other side of quite a severe body count.
Like that, you like tried to end on a positive note, and then it ended up being like really not positive at all.
It's because I really dislike people, so it's all right. When the streets are slippy with blood, I'll be ice skating.
Siri.
Yeah, I'll be very brief since we're wrapping up. But I wanted to just briefly call our attention to the eye that we haven't really touched upon, that maybe we should all engage with more, namely the inner eye. So the eye that you can connect to when you close your eyes, that really does give you a view into the inner world. And that eye is, and I'll just encourage everyone who's watching now or later in the recording on YouTube to see how that eye actually does connect to the center of your palms. Meditate on that and work on that, because there is a very clear connection if you want to do a little meditative experiment for yourself. So I have more to say about it in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and the eyes and the hands and the prevalence of that, but that will have to be for another time, I think.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on what that meditation is like?
Well, I mean, if you connect to your hands before you go into meditation, Sarah uses some of these techniques for inducing lucid dreaming, right? So that you really kind of touch your hands and you focus on your hands and you understand the centeredness of vision that can come from your hands, right? How much you can interface through the hands, through feeling things, through through the inner eye experience, right? When you manage to kind of link those senses up, it's just a question of, I would recommend something like keeping your eyes closed while you're doing a daily task, like doing your dishes by hand. feeling into your hand, seeing what comes through in your inner eye when you are feeling life through your hands. If you're out and about in nature, lying down in the field, touch the grass, close your eyes, and see what comes to your inner realm through that interface of the hand. I think the film, can't remember the name of that Spanish filmmaker, Pan's Labyrinth. Do you know this? Do you know this film? Yeah, there is something archetypal about that image of this creature that has its vision in the palm of its hands. That also kind of runs through other initiatic traditions, this idea of seeing with your hands, or seeing with your feet, in fact, which is you can find also in various First Nation or Native American traditions. So there is an inner eye interface that we mustn't forget about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.